Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you on a First Amendment Friday night. The stock market is on the rise, and no kidding, 700 points right off the bat. And why? Because America's job numbers are great today. They'll get even better. But we're headed in the right direction, and America seems to be trying to get back to normal after the China virus, or China plague, as the president now calls it. Well, we've seen those great numbers, but is our economy out of the woods, or at least headed in the right direction with I guess, the right signs in place to say we can get back to a great economy for all? Joel Griffith joins me now, who's a research fellow for the Institute for Economic Freedom and Opportunity at Heritage. Joel, it's good to have you back on the program. Are we going the right direction?
Hey, thank you for having me tonight. Boy, I tell you, the numbers this morning definitely were quite encouraging. That was the biggest 1 month gain in jobs that we've ever seen. I mean,
in American history.
2 million jobs. Yeah, in 1 month. Of course, we lost 22 million jobs in the 2 prior months, but most analysts, actually, I don't know of a single leading analyst that was predicting this type of growth or even any jobs growth at all in the month of May. So this was very encouraging, and especially if you look at the sectors in which that jobs growth was. Those are in the ones that were hardest hit in the prior month: retail, hospitality, the restaurant business, and construction. If you look at construction, we regained almost half of all the jobs that we lost during the COVID shutdown. We regained almost half of those jobs just last month. So that is definitely encouraging news. But to your question, no, we're not out of the woods yet.
Okay, and I wouldn't expect that until we get below double digits, at least, you'd say we're out of the woods. But does this suggest that we're going in the right direction? And are there major hurdles that are likely to pop up that'll keep us from continuing to go in that direction?
Well, look, make no mistake, the jobs losses were the result of governments that were forcing businesses to shut their doors and telling people to stay home. And I'm sure those restrictions were made with great intentions, and maybe some of those restrictions were proper for a time. But that's what caused these massive jobs losses. And what's going to be really interesting, we're already starting to see this in the data, it's going to be really interesting to see the states that have reopened most quickly, or the states that didn't shut down at all. Those are the states that are bouncing back the quickest. Anecdotally, I went out of town to visit family the other day. Dulles Airport in D.C., the international hub, was a ghost town. I got to Charlotte. It was jam-packed. And by the time I got out of the airport in South Carolina, it was almost back to normal, because those businesses, once they were allowed to open, people came back in mass. And that's what we're seeing when we see this big number from last month.
Well, Joel, we need to get the economists to start using the right terminology, too. Isn't it referred to as blue states and red states? The red states are going to recover fast. The blue states are going to try to keep their populations locked down. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, it is because I think, generally speaking, some of the bluer states have been the ones that had the most severe lockdowns or remain locked down. You've seen some exceptions to that. I think the governor of Colorado, who happens to be a blue governor, he was one of the quickest amongst those to go ahead and start rolling back those on the shutdown orders. And if you look at Ohio, happens to be a Republican governor, and Governor DeWine has put some of the toughest restrictions on businesses. So they're particularly hardest hit. But yes, by and large, the states that are seeing the biggest bounce back are states like Georgia, states of South Carolina, Texas, and Florida. They seem to be doing quite well, and I think we're going to really see that play out in the numbers in the coming months. People are ready to get back to work. People are restless. People want to earn a living. And I'm very encouraged that it looks as if that people have remained, some of these states have remained attached to their initial workplace, and that's going to help us hopefully have we're talking about what kind of recovery we're going to have. We want a V-shaped or an L-shaped. Well, L-shaped, it is what it looks like. It's very long and flat. A V-shape would be a quick recovery, like a bounce back, like you'd see after a hurricane, and that's the direction I hope that we're going.
Well, if you take these numbers, I realize you can't just take 2 points on a graph and you draw a line, but that can be deceptive. So if we had a big rush in May where we saw a jump in numbers, does that perhaps suggest, because business is competitive, that when they look around the marketplace and say, all these folks are back to work, if we don't get busy, they're going to eat our lunch? Is that going to drive perhaps a continuation of a bigger job growth, say in the month of June, not necessarily to match what happened, the biggest in history in May, but at least I would hope that business owners would say, I can't afford to sit around and stay locked down or shut down if everybody around me is going, because there's a marketplace out there. And all of those people jumping back into it are going to seek to grab as big. I mean, if they used to have 8% of the market, they're going to hope for 10% in the new economy, right?
Yeah, I think there is going to be some of that, but there's still a lot of uncertainty as far as what the demand is going to be across all these different sectors. I mean, even if you break down the numbers from this past month, you see certain sectors that have come back very quickly. Those are really some of the businesses that are most easiest to reopen, right? The bars, the restaurant, hospitality. Some of these other sectors of the economy are going to be tricky. Travel, manufacturing. A lot of this is contingent on our international partners as well, and some of that forecast is still cloudy. That's why I'm encouraged to see the 200,000 plus manufacturing jobs come back. But we've got a long way to go. We lost 22 plus million. We regained 2, and that's definitely something to cheer. But we've got a ways to go on this.
Joel, 1 minute left. Here's a question I want to ask. America generates a certain amount of rental housing, apartments and houses that are built every month in a normal economy. We just went through 2 months where an awful lot of that just didn't happen. Does anybody have an idea of let's say we used to generate 10,000 housing starts a month, and then we went to zero or near zero for a month or for 2 months. Are we 20,000 in deficit or some number in deficit to show that when those construction companies start back up again, the demand is going to be fierce?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some makeup here. We saw the mortgage markets some of them almost freeze up for a short time during the early part of that crisis. And a lot of the numbers I'm tracking really showed real estate almost came to a standstill, and that was partially because of banks not wanting to lend, but also people were afraid or didn't even want to show their house for fear of COVID, and you had the economic uncertainty. So I think there is going to be some of that pent-up demand.